Here are some common business analysis interview questions and suggested answers. Can you describe your experience with business analysis? I have been working in the field of business analysis for the past 3 years. In my previous roles, I have worked on a variety of projects including process improvement initiatives, system implementation projects, and business case development. I have experience gathering and analyzing requirements, creating functional and technical specifications, and supporting the testing and deployment of solutions. How do you approach gathering requirements for a project? I typically follow a structured approach to gathering requirements. This typically includes the following steps. Identify the stakeholders and determine their needs and expectations for the project. Define the scope of the project and determine the boundaries of the solution. Conduct interviews and workshops with stakeholders to gather detailed requirements. Document the requirements in a clear and concise manner, using tools such as user stories, process flows, and wireframes. Validate the requirements with the stakeholders to ensure they accurately reflect their needs and expectations. Can you describe a situation where you had to deal with conflicting requirements from different stakeholders? Yes, I have had to deal with conflicting requirements on multiple occasions. In one instance, I was working on a project to implement a new customer relationship management system. One group of stakeholders wanted the system to have a lot of customizability, while another group wanted it to be simple and easy to use. To resolve this conflict, I facilitated a workshop with both groups to understand the underlying needs and priorities of each stakeholder. We were then able to identify a compromise solution that met the needs of both groups. We also established a clear set of decision-making criteria to use for any future conflicts that arose during the project. How do you ensure that the solutions you recommend are aligned with the business objectives? I always begin by thoroughly understanding the business objectives and constraints of the organization. I then identify and analyze the options available, considering their potential benefits, risks, and costs. I work closely with stakeholders to ensure that the recommended solution aligns with the business objectives and meets their needs and expectations. Can you describe a situation where you had to persuade stakeholders to adopt a new solution? Yes, I have had to persuade stakeholders to adopt a new solution on several occasions. In one instance, I was working on a project to improve the efficiency of the supply chain for a manufacturing company. The proposed solution involved implementing a new inventory management system and reorganizing the warehouse layout. To persuade the stakeholders to adopt the solution, I prepared a detailed business case outlining the potential benefits and cost savings of the proposal. I also conducted a risk assessment to address any concerns they had about the implementation of the new system. Ultimately, the stakeholders were convinced of the value of the solution and we were able to successfully implement it. What are your strengths and weaknesses? When answering the question about your strengths and weaknesses in a business analysis interview, it is important to be honest and self-aware. You can highlight your relevant skills and experiences that make you a strong candidate for the role, while also acknowledging areas where you may have room for improvement. One of my strengths as a business analyst is my ability to effectively gather and analyze requirements from multiple stakeholders. I have experience conducting interviews, workshops, and focus groups to gather detailed requirements, and I am skilled at creating functional and technical specifications that clearly and accurately reflect the needs and expectations of the stakeholders. I am also a strong communicator and I am able to effectively convey technical concepts to both technical and non-technical team members. I have experience working with cross-functional teams and I am able to facilitate discussions and resolve conflicts in a collaborative manner. In addition, I have strong problem-solving skills and I am able to approach challenges in a logical and structured manner. I am comfortable working with complex and ambiguous problems and I am able to identify and evaluate potential solutions in order to recommend the best course of action. As for weaknesses, it's important to be honest and candid when discussing your weaknesses in a job interview. However, you should also be mindful of how you present them. It's a good idea to frame your weaknesses as areas that you are actively working on improving. Here is an example of a potential response. One of my weaknesses is that I can sometimes be a perfectionist, which can lead to me spending too much time on tasks and not delegating enough. I am working on improving my time management skills and learning to delegate more effectively so that I can be more efficient in my work. I have also been trying to focus on prioritizing tasks and setting clear goals to help me manage my workload more effectively. Another approach is to discuss a weakness that is not directly related to the job you are applying for. For example, one of my weaknesses is that I can sometimes struggle with public speaking. While this may not be directly relevant to my role as a business analyst, I have been working on improving my public speaking skills by taking a course and practicing in front of small groups. I believe that effective communication is an important skill for any role, and I am committed to continuing to work on this area. It's important to avoid discussing weaknesses that are essential for the job or that could be perceived as major character flaws. It's also a good idea to avoid discussing weaknesses that could be perceived as a lack of interest or motivation.